course, Hurricane Matthew, it's what everybody's talking about. You know, being on this side right now, it seems that we are somewhat in the clear. But as we know, the track can wobble or jog.
Can change last minute.
As Jason likes to tell us, so we're keeping a very close watch on it.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, too, that the western side of these tropical systems, hurricanes or tropical storms, are generally the weakest side. And that's not to say you're not going to get some stronger winds, but fortunately for us, the worst of it will be to our east, but a very severe scenario, unfortunately, for our friends up and down the Florida East Coast. It's especially difficult when you have a storm that is moving parallel to the coast, because just a slight fluctuation or variation in the movement can have a big impact on how many folks see those hurricane force winds. We'll start with the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center that came out at 11 o'clock. We'll have an update to the storm strength coming up at 2 o'clock, and hurricane hunters are going to be in there all day collecting data, so we'll have some really good real-time information on the exact strength of the storm. We do expect it to continue to strengthen. The storm now starting to recover from its interaction with land over Cuba and Hispaniola, so it looks like we'll be dealing with the Category 4 storm, a major hurricane moving up towards southeast Florida. The timeline has changed a little bit, a little more delayed, a little bit later. If you look here at the forecast cone, 8 o'clock Thursday morning, the storm starts to move into the northern Bahamas, and then through the day on Thursday, especially by Thursday night, that's when it makes its closest approach to Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and therefore its closest approach to the east here in southwest Florida. So we would start noticing some of the fringe or peripheral effects as early as tomorrow. Now, this is our forecast model basically showing the timeline of the storm and what we're going to see here along the east coast, rain-wise, what we're going to see here along the west coast. So let's put this into motion and take you sort of step by step. We'll start here at 7 o'clock Thursday morning. The storm still down to our southeast, and then heads over toward the southeast Florida coast. Here's the core of the storm. This is where we have the hurricane force winds. At this point, the hurricane force winds only go out from the center about 45 miles. So that's where you can see just a variation of about 20 miles west or east can make a big difference in how strong the winds are along the Florida East Coast and how strong the wind gusts here are here in southwest Florida. As we look ahead to Thursday night, this is about due east of southwest Florida, and notice the sharp cutoff, the heavy rain bands right along the Florida East Coast, and we could see a situation where there's really not a tremendous amount of rain here in southwest Florida, but we would certainly notice the winds picking up, and then the storm continues to progress farther north. We could potentially see a landfall happen here along the Florida East Coast, perhaps close to Cape Canaveral, where the land sticks out a little bit farther. This is Friday morning, and as we head through the day on Friday, then the storm starts to head up closer to the first coast, up around Jacksonville, and then we'll follow basically the shape of the coastline as we head into late Friday and through the course of the weekend. Now, we are not concerned with any storm surge issues here in southwest Florida due to the location of the storm and us being on the western side. For storm surge problems to really occur, you need the onshore wind, and our winds for most of the event will come in from the north. So I don't think storm surge will be an issue, but we'll also be paying close attention to how much rain we're going to see here in southwest Florida and also what kind of wind gusts we're going to see. And we'll address the rainfall potential first. This is our latest forecast model. And one thing I want to stress here is there's going to be a very sharp cutoff from communities that see a lot of rain. And you can just see that here with our forecast projections. Along the Florida East Coast, we could see as much as 10 inches in some communities, but then as you start to get out toward the interior, closer to Lake Okeechobee, even more so heading over toward the Florida West Coast, there is a huge drop-off in rainfall totals. So we can see a lot of southwest Florida only getting 1 to 2 inches of rain from the storm, perhaps some localized areas getting more than that, especially out closer to Lake Okeechobee. But again, I caution you, a slight variation to the west and the overall track could mean that we see more rain here in southwest Florida. Now, in terms of the wind, this is something else we're going to feel through the day on Thursday. This is Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I've got the forecast sustained winds here on the map. We're looking at sustained winds closer to 20 miles per hour with some higher gusts, potentially up closer to 40, maybe 50 miles per hour closer to Lake Okeechobee. And you can see the hurricane force winds right there along the Florida East Coast, closer to the eye wall. That's where the strongest storms are contained inside the hurricane. And even as we head into Friday, we're going to see some of the circulation wrap around and some winds still coming in from the north and west at about 20 miles per hour with some higher gusts. And then the winds will start to relax a little more as we head through Friday night to Saturday as the storm heads up to the north over the coast of Georgia and up into into the Carolinas. And again, it's very important to stay tuned to exactly the forecast track. With every updated forecast that comes out, we'll have a new advisory on the strength coming up at 2 o'clock and an updated forecast cone coming up at 5 o'clock. Currently, not a whole lot happening on the live Doppler radar. We will see a few showers rotate in from the east as we head through the afternoon, but tomorrow's the day, Thursday, when we start to see some of the winds picking up for us, especially heading into the afternoon, and some of these rain bands spiraling into southwest Florida. We're going to see quite a bit of cloud cover as well. Temperatures up into the middle 80s, and then as we head into the weekend, our weather will greatly improve. In fact, we could even see a nice drop in humidity as we look ahead to early next week. That's your NBC2 First Alert forecast.